Go. All right, good morning. For those of you who are just joining, just give us a moment. We're actually going to just get this going in a second. Just let the people filter in. We went live at dead on 10:30, so we'll just give it a minute or two for attendees to come in, and then we'll get going. This is where we sit and smile at each other.
Right. So very awkward, but we're happy you're here. Thanks for popping in.
All right, so I'm going to get going. I see a few people filtering in, so I'm going to get started. For those of you who have joined us before, you know my spiel and you're going to hear it again anyway. For those of you who are new, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Today's webinar is all about the art of delegation, and we have with us Lisa and Laura, who I'm going to I'm going to delegate them to introduce themselves and introduce the webinar as they have a whole presentation for you. But just a couple of housekeeping rules in the meanwhile. This is being recorded. It'll be available for you on YouTube within a few days after we're done. There was a PDF download that we had included in some of the invitations. So if any of you had a chance to download that or look at it, that would be great. If you didn't, I think Laura's going to help with that. Q&A, we welcome Q&A. We always welcome Q&A. We like the questions. We like the interactivity. So please go ahead and put your Q&A in. As I always say, if you can try and do it in the Q&A box and not in the notes or the chat section, because it's much easier for us to manage it in Q&A. But we will try to get to everything, and then we'll have a Q&A also at the end. This is the Monmouth chapter of SCORE. We offer free business mentoring to small businesses. We offer it around the country, but we here are with Monmouth County. I think I've said everything I need to say, so I am going to hand over to you ladies.
Fantastic, thank you. And Laura, can you pop that back in? I think you just sent that to me.
Oh, that just went to you. Actually, I think it was, hold on, I don't even think it was the updated one, so that's
we're glad you're here. And while Laura's dropping the link into the chat for the action guide, I'll ask you if you have ever had an experience similar to the one that I am about to describe. So when I first started my business, I would come into my office, and it was early in the morning, and I would be in my pajamas, and I would be working. And right outside my office window, my husband would be sitting, because it was summer, and he would be on the deck having breakfast, and he'd holler in, "Hey, are you going to come out for breakfast?" And I would say, "Give me a minute. I just need to finish this one thing." And I know we have all said, "I just need to finish this one thing." Then all of a sudden it's noon, and all I have done is worked at my desk. So fast forward a couple of days, and my husband hollers in again, "Are you going to come out for breakfast?" And I say, I'm much smarter this time. So I say, "Give me a couple weeks. I'm in the middle of this big project." And I know that we've all done the same. Fast forward 2 days before he goes back to school, and I realize I have not gone onto the deck one time to have breakfast with my husband. That time is now gone. And I realized I needed to take that step back and figure out what in the world's going on. I started my business for flexibility and freedom. My business is to help people with their time management, and I'm allowing it to take over my life. And it was at that point that I realized I had a productivity bottleneck. And I know as business owners, we all get stuck up sometimes not being able to complete everything we want to. And at the time when I started my business, my productivity bottleneck was delegation. And I quickly realized that because I was the business owner, I didn't have to own all the things, but I did need to figure out how to get them out of my head into someone else's. And I had varying degrees of success as I first started my path down on delegation, and then realized it's a skill set. And that's one of the things that Laura and I are going to teach you today are, what are those skills that you need to have to be able to easily delegate?
Okay, and before I get started, I'll tell you a little bit about my story too. Claire, I threw another link in, but for some reason the chat is not letting me change who it's going to. It's only giving me host and participant. So I don't know if one of you can figure that out while I...
Yeah, I'll take a look.
tell my delegating story. So hi, everybody. I am Laura Licursi, co-founder of Delegate Like a Pro. And my delegation story, honestly, just came to fruition probably about a year into starting my business. And I was definitely one of those people that, like, I'm sure all of you in the beginning stages, were doing everything. We have every hat in the air, and we're just trying to make it all work by ourselves. And what I found is that what was really on the back burner for me was all of my marketing efforts, because I could only do that when I had time to do it. Because my days were filled with doing all the things that I had to do, like to actually run the business. And I also was running around 3 kids, and, I had an extremely busy life. So nights and weekends were the only time that I actually had to work on my marketing, right? Putting email newsletters together, doing my social media. And if I didn't have time to do it, then it wasn't getting done. And I could feel myself starting to burn out after trying to do everything for so long. And, then the question always comes up in your head, like, gosh, can I really afford to do this? Can I actually afford to delegate this workout? But I knew that I was never going to grow past the point that I was at if I didn't start delegating. So that was actually the very first thing that I hired somebody to do, was to take that piece over. And it was a game changer for my business. And I've been able to, delegate out every role since that point. So we all need a starting point, and you really have to just take that leap of faith that, it is an investment in the beginning, but delegating is really the only way that you are ever going to be able to grow your business without working more hours.
So specifically, here are the things that we're going to uncover today. And I want to give you fair warning. Laura and I love this topic, and we'll probably at one point interrupt each other. So we apologize if you feel awkwardness on your end. We will not, because we do it all the time. So here are the things that we will talk about today. 1, why is delegating a feasible way to create time freedom? You may or may not be on the delegating bandwagon like we are, and we want to share why we think that this is the best way to reclaim your time. Secondly, we will go through the 5 stages of delegation that all business owners go through in their journey. And then finally, we'll talk about how to reclaim at least 1 hour of your day by delegating. And so what I'd like to know right now, and you can either drop it in the chat or drop it in the Q&A, whichever is easiest for you. What would you do with an extra hour today? And we'll give you a second to gather your thoughts and to pop them in. And while you're doing that, we will be using the action guide, the top part of our action guide, in a moment. And if for some reason you don't have the action guide, just grab a scrap piece of paper. But what would you do with an extra hour? All right, we have walk the dogs. And we'll continue, but please let us know, what would you do with that extra hour? Because this is the reason you're on today, is to do something with your time. Now,
for anybody who does want to go ahead and grab that PDF, Claire did put the link in there for you if you want to be able to follow along with that.
All right, go ahead, Laura.
All right. So if you grab that PDF, or like Lisa said, grab a piece of paper, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, right? And which is, you have a lot on your plate, but what's really important is figuring out exactly what is on your plate. So what I want you to do is grab that PDF, or if you just have a piece of paper, go ahead and write out on the left side now, on the right side wow, and just draw a line down the middle. And what I want you to do, I'll give you guys a couple minutes here, is write down like 3 to 5 activities or tasks that you are doing right now that you're actually doing like during the day right now. So you might have already done it this morning. It's something that you know that you're doing on a regular basis. This is something that I actually encourage you to elaborate on later. for sake of time, I'm only going to tell you to put down like 3 to 5 activities or tasks that you're doing right now. And just go ahead and write that down. So we'll give you a minute or so to do that. And this is actually something too that is a great thing to revisit, like even on a quarterly basis, because as you start delegating out and then you see what else is left on your plate, you're going to find more and more things you'll be able to delegate out to people. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next column on the right, and that is the wow column. And what I want you to write down here are 3 to 5 things that you would like to do, but you actually don't have time to do them. And this could have to do with your business. It could have to do with your personal life, whatever it is, like those things that you really wish that you could do, but you just can't seem to find the time to do it. And these are the things that would actually like really make your life and your business like, wow, I really want to be able to do these things. And we'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that. And it could be anything. It could be, you know, you want more time to exercise, or maybe you want to be able to get up later or have dinner with your family every night at the same time, or, you know, it could be anything, or you just want more time to work on big picture pieces of your business, whatever those wow factors are for you. And then when you take a look, compare the 2 columns. And what you're going to see is that everything that you're doing now is keeping you from those wow things, right? Those things that you really want to be doing, like probably the reasons that you started your business thinking that you were going to have time to do these wow things, but unfortunately you don't, because you are stuck in the weeds of your business. So what I would love to hear from you guys is, on a scale of 1 to 4, if you could throw this in the chat, how often are you actually living your wow moments? So number 1 would be never, and you can go up to number 4, which would be always. Let's try to stay away from like 2.5 or 2.75, but let's just try to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1 would be I'm never living my wow moments, and 4 is I'm living them all the time.
And while you're dropping those into the chat or into the Q&A box, we want to talk about the fact that we all have the same 168 hours. And for most of us, when we do a time tracker, or we look at what are the things we want to accomplish, if we look at everything in our now and everything in our wow, it turns out that we have about 250 hours worth of work. And so obviously we can't do everything ourselves. And so that's why delegating is your path to time freedom. And we are here to share, it's hard. It is hard to do it right. So many times you can feel like, if by the time I delegate to someone else, I could have just done it myself, or I spend all the time answering questions, and like all of those things, it's hard. And so what Laura and I have figured out with working with tons and tons of clients is that there are 3 very specific skill sets that you need to master in order to be able to delegate easily. So our first skill set, and if you look on your action guide, you'll see that this graphic is on the bottom. And as I describe the skill set, I want you to think about yourself again on a scale of 1 to 4. And right now, this is about building awareness. This isn't about judgment. We want to know how 1 is not, you figure you probably haven't mastered the skill set very well. 4 is not a problem. You totally have this handled. So I want to describe the first one, that CEO mentality. So in order to master the CEO mentality, you need to look at 3 parts: role, zone of genius, and letting go. So if we talk about the role, the first thing you want to think about is, do you understand your role in the business? Not your role as the employee in the business, which most of us started doing the work, delivering the service, delivering the product. So not necessarily do you understand your role as the employee, but do you understand the role as the actual CEO of your business? Like one of our clients realized she was spending about 80% of her time doing actual employee tasks, working directly with clients, billing clients, creating social media posts, that type of stuff, and only about 20% on the strategic planning and the building those possible referral relationships, things like that. So when you're looking at the role, you want to think about, okay, do you understand your role as CEO versus employee? Then the second piece is, are the tasks that you're actually doing sitting in your zone of genius? Like, are they actually in your zone of genius? And so when we talk about zone of genius, what we're talking about here is the things that you're uniquely good at, intersected with the things that move your business forward, intersected with the things that you love to do. That's your zone of genius. That's where you want to spend the majority of your time. And so as you're looking at this model, again, when you're thinking about the CEO mentality, it's, do you understand your role? Are you working in your zone of genius, doing those things you're uniquely good at, you love to do, and that move your business forward? And finally, are you able to let go? Like, are you able to let other people do the work? I mean, because come on, our businesses are almost our babies. And sometimes it's hard to let people do stuff. So I want to dig in a little bit, think through, where are you on a scale of 1 to 4 on the CEO mentality piece? And go ahead, drop your answer in the chat or in the Q&A. And then we'll talk next about the second part, the second competency that you want to be able to master, or skill set. And what that is resources. And so the resources piece has 3 parts also: the who, skills, and task versus role. So let's talk about this. That who piece is, who do you have on your bench that can do the work? Is it current staff already? Like some of our clients recognize right away, they already have people on staff that they are underutilizing. Others realize they need to outsource or hire freelancers along the way. You can't figure this out until you've done a really good, strong, deep dive on who you have available and what their skill sets are. So that first piece is who do you have? Don't pigeonhole your team either. So one of our clients recently turned over their social media to their bookkeeper, which typically you would think, how can that even be possible? And the reason is because it turns out that she had a minor in marketing, and photography was a hobby of hers that she was working on. And so it made perfect sense to slide that there. But until they were able to dig in a little bit more on who was already on their bench, they would never have known that. So when you're thinking about who you're looking at, you know, who's everyone who's available to you? Staff, other resources, outsourcing, things like that. Then when you look at the skills, you want to look at not only the skills of the people that you've identified who you could potentially delegate to, but also what are the skills needed to do the tasks that you want to get off your plate. So you want to be clear on that. And then finally, that third part is task versus role. Are you able to delegate something at a task basis? So it's do this one thing, do this one thing, or can you give a role? Is there the opportunity to give a role? So there's something completely different from someone answering questions at the help desk versus someone being in charge of all of customer service. And so you need to be clear when you are mastered this resources competency, you're clear on who do you have available, what skill sets do you need and do they have, and finally, in what areas do you want to delegate tasks versus in what areas do you want to delegate a role? So go ahead, self-assess on a scale of 1 to 4. If you feel comfortable sharing where you're at on that, pop it in the Q&A or pop it in the chat. But a 1 is a lot of work to go. A 4 is, I've got this handled. And then our final skill or competency is the processes. And this one here is the place that takes care of the whole, I wish they could read my mind. Why can't, that's happening here in the processes piece. So when we're looking here, we're looking at three things again. Do you have SOPs, standard operating procedures, for all your tasks? Are you able to develop your employees to move them out of the task role and out of the tasks piece and into the roles? And then finally, can your employees make decisions that are consistent with the mission and vision and guiding principles of your company without asking you? And do they do it in a way that you're comfortable? So think through those three things. If you're going to rank yourself a 4 here, it means that you have processes and procedures written for everything that you have in your business. You have employees who can own roles, and they also can make decisions on their own. And so again, 1 to 4, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and drop it in the Q&A or in the chat, but make sure that you assess yourself where you're at, because this is how you know where you want to start. You want to start wherever your score is the lowest to start to skill up in that area. Now, what I'm hoping is that you can easily see here that when you have a handle on all 3 of these competencies, it's so much easier to be successful at delegating. And this is a piece I didn't realize when I started. And I know Laura's in the same place. Like, we just kind of figure it out on your own and then realize later, oh, this is why it didn't work. So this is one piece you want to make sure that you revisit again after this presentation.
And I mean, to be honest with you, most business owners are not proficient in all 3 of the areas. And that is what we are going to help you figure out today. Trying to figure out what stage of delegation that you are actually in. And some people don't even understand that there really are these 5 stages of delegation. And, you want to be able to move through them and make sure that you are taking the right action steps in order to get to that next stage. Because sometimes it's just, you don't know what you don't know. So, what we are going to do is we're going to go through these 5 stages with you. And then we're going to give you a tip at the end of each stage to help you get to that next level, which is Visionary Vic. Everybody wants to become Visionary Vic. So our goal here is to help you figure out how you can move from stage 1, if that's where you are, Juggler Jerry, all the way through to Visionary Vic. So your mission today is to identify what stage you're in, and from the tips that we're going to give you, find one strategy that's going to help you get to that next stage. And then as you move from one stage to the next, you're actually going to gain at least 1 hour every stage that you go through, 1 hour a day. That's minimum too. So let's talk about stage 1. Juggler Jerry, this is usually where we all start out our businesses, right? Like I had mentioned before, this is what I was doing in the beginning. You're literally doing everything yourself. You're working nights and weekends. You really don't have time to work on your business because you're too busy working in your business. And this is a really common stage that, like I said, we all start up our businesses in stage 1 with Juggler Jerry. And in this stage, we typically tend to value money over time, right? Because we want to be able to make as much and keep as much money as we can in those beginning stages. But in all honesty, it's tiring and it's really frustrating. And, you're always kind of living on that edge of you're afraid that you are going to be dropping balls and letting people down, because you just get to a point that you really can't balance it all. Because let's face it, we all typically have lives outside of our business. So that also is in the mix of everything that you're juggling. So if this is who you identify with, here's a couple of action steps that can help get you out of Juggler Jerry phase. you really need to know your worth. And in order to figure out what your worth is, it's just really some simple math. How much money do you want to make? Write down that number and then divide that by how many hours you actually want to work. So I'm not saying you have to work, but you want to work. It's the amount of money that you want to make, how many hours you want to work, and this is going to give you your hourly worth. And that's a really important number that you need to keep in your mind at all times when you think about the tasks that you're doing and what you're paying yourself to do. And then next, one of the things that Lisa mentioned in our flywheel is identify your zone of genius. And again, these are only things that you can do, things that you love to do. It's the reason why you started your business. So on your PDF, I would love for you guys, and if you want to share it in the chat, that'd be great too. But if this is who you identify with, what action step are you going to take to get out of the Juggler Jerry stage and be able to move into stage 2?
And now, speaking of stage 2, meet Searcher Sally. So Searcher Sally has recognized that there's limited capacity. Like if you're in the stage, you know that you're like, I can't possibly hit my goals and have a life unless I start moving some things off my plate. And so in this stage, the great news is you've identified, these are the tasks I need to delegate. And you are searching for the right person to delegate to. I know when I first started delegating, I treated my virtual assistant as a unicorn. I expected her to be able to fix my website, and I expected her to be able to write copy, and I expected her to do social media, and I expected her to call potential customers, and I like all of it. Okay, one person does not have all those skills in the most part. Like maybe you have found the unicorn, I have not. And so what's happening here in the stage is you're just kind of throwing things at people. I always laugh, like if they make eye contact, congrats, they've gotten the task. And so in this stage, what you're finding is that delegating is very random. It's very hit or miss. You're frustrated because you haven't gained more time and you keep searching for ways to make the delegating thing work. If this is where you are, or even if you know someone who might be in this stage, here are a couple action steps that you can take to get out of the stage. 1, get clarity around who you have available. So we talked about this in the flywheel earlier. Who do you have available, in who has the exact skills that you're looking for to complete the task? So you want to get, if you're in this stage, you want to get really clear on who's on your bench and what are their skill sets. If you are in this stage and you have hit upon an action that you know that you like to take, by all means, pop it in the Q&A or the chat. And know that once you're able to identify who you have and what their skill sets are, you will be able to move on to stage 3.
And stage 3 is experimenter Erin. So you can see that you're moving up. We're about halfway through our stages right now. And when you are in this stage of experimenter Erin, you've identified the right person, but it's actually just taking too long for you to teach them how to do things. Every time you delegate, it's like an experiment to see how long is it going to take for this person to finish, and if they're actually going to finish what I'm giving them correctly. And what you find, the frustration is really that you're spending more time managing this person than actually delegating work to them, because you're answering questions, you're checking in on the progress, and you find yourself still working nights and weekends. Maybe not every night and weekend, but the reason that you're still doing it is because you feel like you're reinventing the wheel every time you offload a task. And so your day is filled with helping the person you're delegating to, and you still have to get the rest of your stuff done nights and weekends. So this is really when you're trying to delegate at a higher level with higher stakes. And delegating at this point feels really hard. If this is who you identify with, here's a couple action steps that can really help you move out of this phase. And the first one is make sure that you have or that you create SOPs for recurring tasks. This is really important to have somebody have some kind of a roadmap to follow, and especially with the recurring tasks, because these are regular things that are going to happen over and over again, that once you teach somebody and it's off your plate, it's off your plate for good. But you've got to have those SOPs. It's really important. And then also you want to co-create a check-in schedule. Communication is huge when you're delegating, especially if the person is not in the office with you. It's really important that you set up this communication plan and you create this check-in schedule, because what it does is it really helps you eliminate micromanaging. Because otherwise you are the one that's constantly checking in and seeing, well, where are we at with this? And do you get it? And it becomes very frustrating, where if you create a schedule, like, okay, we're going to meet on Monday to go over what we're going to do for the week. And then on Friday, we're going to recap it and see if you have any questions. You're creating that schedule together. And it not only gives you peace of mind that you're going to have these different check-in points, but it's also going to, add accountability to the person you're delegating to, because they know that they've been given work to do. And then they're going to, at the end of the week, they're going to have to report back to you. So go ahead and write down what action step, if you are in experimenter Erin, what action step are you going to take to get out of this stage and be able to move into stage 4? So basically what we've done is we've covered 3 out of the 5 stages. And I would love to see if you guys could throw it in the chat or the Q&A, how, where are you guys at right now? If you identify with any of these first 3, are you in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3? Which one do you guys identify with? And if it's none, then you might be further up the delegating ladder, and we'll be touching on those in a minute.
And sometimes it can feel like you're in multiple stages at the same time. That's okay too. There may be pieces of each stage that you are identifying with, and you can pop that in. The other 2 other points before we move on to stage 4. One is Laura and I use the term nights and weekends based on the fact that both of our businesses typically we want to have happen during the day. If you are someone who owns a retail shop or a restaurant or something where nights and weekends is typically where you would be working, feel free to flip the phrase. Basically, when we say nights and weekends, we're talking about the time that we don't want to work, but that we're using to catch up on stuff. The other thing is, if you are in stage 3, the experimenter Erin stage, this is the place where we see people give up on delegating the most often, because they're working, they feel like I'm doing the right things, but I'm not seeing the results yet. And you're just not seeing the results yet because you're having a hard time getting the stuff from your head into theirs, because you've identified these are the right tasks, these are the right people. But the process part is hard. And this is where people say, that's it, I'm done. It was easier when I did it all myself. And I promise, if you hold on and get your SOPs down, you can move into stage 4, which is Ringmaster Ralph. Now, here's the deal about Ringmaster Ralph. You're starting to hit your groove. Things are getting easier. You're moving pieces and people and tasks around like a ringmaster. You know exactly what you want to delegate. You know exactly what are the things you want to keep for yourself. What are your zone of genius tasks? You are super clear on who the people are that can do the tasks the best. You are super clear on what skills are needed to do things, because sometimes it's skills, sometimes it's personality, sometimes it's both. And you are crystal clear on all of that. But you struggle with moving those big picture items. So if you're in this stage and you're feeling like, yeah, I have a lot of this under control, but you find yourself saying things like, why can't anyone read my mind? Or I wish they would just take initiative. Like, why can't they think for themselves? You're in this stage if you're saying that. Many of our clients will describe this stage as like they're feeling like they're still stuck in the weeds a little bit and they're spinning their wheels, like they're pretty busy all day. They're not working nights and weekends or the times that they don't want to, but they're like, the day-to-day is getting done, but I'm not really able to push the needle forward on the business stuff, like the strategic planning, the partnering with referrals, JV partners, whatever it may look like to build the business, like developing a new income stream, doing market research, like those types of things. So if you feel like you're in this stage, you're getting the day-to-day done, but you're not getting as much time as you'd like to be working on the business, here are two things that you can do. One, start moving team members into roles. Let them take ownership of all of customer service. Let them take ownership of all of sales. Let them take ownership of all of production or whatever the case may be. Because once they're in a role, they start to see the bigger picture. And so they can start making decisions on their own. And a second strategy that you can employ here is paint done for me. And I know that's a phrase for those of you who read Brene Brown. That's a phrase she uses in one of her books. Like, how do they know the project task is done? How do they know that it's successful? Like, what's your definition of success? Like, what do you want to see at the end? When you're in stage 4, you're doing a lot of describing the end results and letting your employees fill in the middle. Because shocking as this may be, they may be able to do a better job than you, filling in the how do we get from point A to point B. You just have to really be able to paint the picture of what point B looks like. So if this is you, you're identifying with stage 4, you know someone who may be in stage 4, make sure that you capture an action step. One is move people into roles. A second suggestion here is being able to clearly define the outcome, which would be painting done.
Okay, and then our ultimate goal is always to make it all the way to stage 5, which is Visionary Vic. And if this is where you are, congratulations, because you are delegating at an extremely efficient level. Your team members at this point really are taking the initiative and they have the authority to make decisions independently because you have moved through these phases together. And you've been able to schedule that work-free 2-week vacation that you have always wanted, and you know that your business is going to run smoothly without you. When you're in the Visionary Vic phase, you are going to spend a lot of time every week in that CEO visionary role, right? Which is where we all want to be. That's the only way that you're ever going to continue to scale. You've got to be able to have that time to actually be a CEO and see where you want your next stage to be. And this is what we're all striving for. So, and you might be thinking, well, if I'm here, then there's there's no place else to go, but that's actually not true. So what you want to remember is when you get here, you want to be able to stay here, because sometimes, we can fall back into old patterns and you might end up back at Ringmaster Ralph if you're not conscious of what you're doing. And the one tip that we have for you to stay in this phase, in this stage, is you have to be willing to let go probably of even more, and you just can't expect perfection. A lot of times we just want everything exactly the way that we would do it. But as long as the outcome is what you want, let people get there any way that they want to. It might not be the perfect road, but you're not the one doing it. And as long as the outcome is what you wanted, then they're going to get there the way they're going to get there. And they're going to actually feel empowered because they did it themselves.
So we want to know, Laura and I are dying to know right now, what stage you do identify with. So you've been a little quiet in the chat and we've let you slide by up till now, but we're curious. What stage do you identify in? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or potentially multiple stages. So go ahead, drop it in the Q&A or drop it in the chat. We're going to give you a second. I always forget that there's a delay between when I say things and then it gets to you to hear, and then you can get into type it in. So we'd love to know. And while you're identifying where you are, whether you're in stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thank you. Look at this. So you feel free to put your answer. Thank you, anonymous attendee, for letting us know that the chat has been disabled. No worries. Go ahead and drop it in the Q&A. That's fine because we can sort through that just fine. So Steve here is at a 4.75. Again, there's no judgment regardless of where you are. We just, it's for your awareness so that you know how to move up to the next step. Now, here's what we have uncovered today. If we did our jobs well, here's what you have learned. 1, you are now on the delegating bandwagon. You totally understand that delegating is a feasible way to create time freedom. Secondly, you are pretty clear on the 5 stages and you know where you are in reference to them and what you need to do to move up a stage. And then finally, you have an idea of how to reclaim at least an hour back in your day. And that is simply by implementing one of the strategies to move up a stage along the, from one stage to the next. Now, oops, sorry, my cursor got stuck there. Identify one action step that you need to get to move from one stage to the next. What's one thing that you need to do? And Claire enabled the chat. So again, pop it in the chat, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So what's one thing that you can do to move up? Either put it in the Q&A or put it in the chat. What's one thing that you can do differently? We're going to give you a second, or give you like 10 seconds to think before you pop it in.
Okay, and while you're working on that, then think about how confident are you? If you're not at Visionary Vic stage yet, how confident are you in getting there on a scale of 1 to 4?
And you can put this right in your action guide.
And then there's also a spot in there for any notes that you want to add.
So we have, I need to hire someone to handle the specific difficult tasks that you've been doing. Awesome action step. Thank you. We have make SOPs so I don't need to worry that things are not done as I want. Yes, let that go. Thank you, Vivian. All right, keep popping them in there. And then how confident are you that you can get to Visionary Vic? And it's okay if your confidence changes by the day. Mine does too. So it's all right if it keeps changing. All right, we've got a 2 on how confident. All right, so what we'd like to do here is invite you to attend our Delegate Express Zone. And Laura, tell them all about our Delegate Express Zone.
So this is something that Lisa and I do every month. It's actually, it's a really great space for you to come with your delegating dilemmas. It's live on Zoom. It's 30 minutes just to respect everybody's time. You bring your delegating dilemma and we'll answer your question for you. Actually, we've had a great turnout for these. We have to sometimes move through the questions quickly, but I'll tell you what, people have really got a lot of value out of coming on here, even just learning what other people's dilemmas are. We've had a lot of, feedback saying how much that has helped them as well. So again, once a month, you jump onto our Delegate Express Zone. It's free, 30-minute live Zoom. You can register at delegatelikeapro.com/Dez, D-E-Z, and we will be there live to answer your questions for a full 30 minutes.
And you'll get a sneak peek of that right now, because we have time to take some Q&A, and we are going to try something a little different. Claire, we have discussed it. Claire, Laura, and I discussed it earlier. If you guys are willing, you can put your question in the Q&A, but you can also, if you would like to verbally ask your question, we're going to try that feature out. And if it fails miserably, you're going to erase that all from your memory, and you're going to pretend like everything worked great.
And it'll be on YouTube forever anyway. But yeah, so if you would like to, so we've never done this. For those of you who are regulars, you know that. But there is a function in Zoom where we can allow you to ask your question, and we can allow you to talk. So if you want to either raise your hand, or in the Zoom feature, raising hand, or if you just want to put into the Q&A or the chat that you'd like to ask the question verbally, we can allow you to talk and ask it verbally. It may go horribly wrong, or it may be great, but encourage anybody who wants to try it to go ahead.
And no delegating questions are off the table. So I would say this is a safe space, but it is going on YouTube, so it's mostly a safe space, but truly there's nothing. If you're struggling with employees who don't seem to do the work as fast as you'd like, or as well as you'd like, or if you're struggling with how to get from a task to a role, or you think there's something on your plate that you could never, ever, ever possibly delegate, go ahead. All right, so we have one. As someone with perfectionist standards, I find others I've worked with historically settle for lower quality work. And I'm sure many of you are nodding your head right now. I fear the same of any VA I might hire, that I'd feel the need to nudge them more often than a Monday check-in and a Friday catch-up. So if we're very quality focused, leaving every stone turned, I love that phrase, thank you, how might we hire our first VA? And so as you may or may not know, because I don't know that we said it so much in our intro, Laura and I co-founded Delegate Like a Pro, but we also both own our own individual businesses. And one of those businesses, the business that Laura owns, is a virtual assistant agency. So she is totally going to be able to take this question.
All right, for some reason, I can't see the, oh wait, here it is. Okay, I couldn't see that question for the longest time. Let's see. So you fear the VAs that you hire, you need to nudge them more often. That honestly, I have to tell you, a lot of times that comes down to more the process than the person. If the person is, for the most part, working at the level that you need them to work at, but you're finding gaps, you've got to just recheck that process. And maybe it is not just a check-in. Are you using a project management system? Maybe kind of a project management tool. Because a lot of times when you're using a system like that, like for example, a Trello or an Asana, and there's hundreds out there, you can actually see and gauge the process on what's going on at every phase. So instead of always going in and nudging your VA, make sure that there's clear deadlines set, maybe not just check-ins, but make sure that you've got a clear deadline for what you need done, clear expectations around what needs to be done, and like we talked about, what the outcome of that is, what you want it to look like. So what your vision is of, paint done for me, as Brene Brown says. So a lot of it just really goes around the expectations, setting, making sure that you have a system in place, no matter what that system is, for being able to track the progress of things as you go, clear SOPs, and a lot, I have to tell you, I mean, as a business owner, I mean, we're 7 years in business with the agency, and we are constantly changing processes. When we see that there's a gap somewhere, we're constantly changing it then. And that's just, it's just part of owning a business. So I would say, if you have a person who is competent, you need to make sure that you have all of the supporting pieces that are actually just going to set that person up for success. Because a lot of times we really don't look at it quite that closely, and we just want it done.
And I think the other thing that in our experience is that when you clearly can set the bar, most people will rise to meet it. And if they don't, it's not because of lack of trying or ownership, it's because they need to skill up a little bit. So if you're worried about quality, one of the things you want to double check on is that they have the ability to produce at the level that you want them to, or do they need additional training? All right, we're ready for another question, or raise your hand if you'd like to. Come on, someone ask a question live, because we're dying to try out this feature. So someone be the brave one. Jump on, raise your hand so we can try to bring someone on live.
Just was your whilst we're waiting for somebody to. Oh, there's a question. I have a comment about the last one, just as a business owner and as a somewhat perfectionist as well. You have to lower your expectations a little bit as well. That doesn't mean you have to lower your work product or your work quality or your company quality, but people aren't always going to do things as well as you would do them yourself. They're just not. It's, that's why it's your business. It's why you're the owner and you're the boss. It's your vision. It's your idea. But it doesn't mean they're not going to do it really well. And in some ways they may have different ways to do things, which could be better if you open your mind to it. So I know that from experience, it's really hard to let go, and it's really hard but don't expect people to do things the way you do them or as well as you do them, because they won't. And that's really okay. That's where you have to change your mindset, is in allowing that to be okay, because your customers will still be happy. The business will still come in, and everything will be fine.
Yes.
That's a very good point, Claire. Very good point.
And to jump on top of what Claire just said, many times what you're delegating to someone, you didn't have a lot of time to do yourself. And now the person you're delegating it to, that's a main focus for them. They're not distracted while they're working through it. So often, after a couple of times of doing whatever it is they're doing, it's going to come out even better. Because you think about your day, you jump from one thing to another, to another, to another. The person you're delegating to, they can put 100% focus on whatever that task is, and then 100% focus on the next one. Jumping into, thank you, Michael, for putting a question here. How do we know if we're micromanaging? Well,
I love this one.
So one, you may see your employees rolling their eyes whenever you come towards them, and you may get that icky feeling. And on top of that, all joking aside, it's not going to feel like a very comfortable conversation with people when you're micromanaging. They're going to feel like you're constantly looking over their shoulder. You are probably feeling uncomfortable also. And so the key to that is just set up a schedule, actual appointments in the calendar, where you have the opportunity to meet with them to go over their process and to go over where they're at. What questions do they have? If you ask, how's everything going? There's very few people on this planet who are going to be like, they're not going that well. It turns out I have no idea what you've asked me to do, and I'm lost. That's not going to happen. But if you can say, okay, share with me where we are, same question, completely different thing. Now it opens up the conversation. So I know I kind of veered off a little bit of the micromanaging piece.
And also feedback, feedback both ways. How do you think I'm doing? And asking the person you've delegated to, how do you feel like you're doing, and how am I doing okay, and coaching you and helping you to figure out what it is you need to do. Feedback is a two-way street, and that's always helpful.
Absolutely. Laura, you want to take this one first? Or do you want me to?
Yeah. Who are your mentors or authors that helped you learn to build your businesses? Boy, I have a lot. So I did have a SCORE mentor that I used in the Cleveland area. I also was part of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, which was just overall, it's a mini MBA for your business. So it was a great experience for me. And authors, oh my gosh, I've read so many books. Brene Brown is a great one for leadership. I love her. I actually, a lot of it, a lot of having a successful business, actually Claire kind of mentioned this, is having the right mindset and being able to kind of get out of your head and out of your tunnel and see that there's other ways to do things. So, honestly, Denise Duffield Thomas is great. She's got some really great books on, how to just think a little bit differently instead of, the constant hustle grind. And I'll tell you what, there was another great book. I can't really say it on here, but it's Unblank Yourself. Great book. You know what, I'm going to actually, if you want to jump in, Lisa, I'm going to find the author because it's a great book.
And so in addition to the things that Laura has mentioned, author-wise, Mike Michalowicz. I've read all his books. If you're looking more nuts and bolts, less mindset, his very nuts and bolts types of books for your business. And if you ever have the opportunity to see him speak live, do it. The other organization that has definitely helped from a business standpoint is NABO, so the National Association of Women Business Owners. Laura and I both belong to the Cleveland chapter. We've spoken at their national conferences. And for those of you who are women business owners, I highly advise you to check that organization out. There's one in Central Jersey, I believe, and one in Philly. So check that out. Go ahead, Laura, did you find the author?
I did. So it's Gary John Bishop. It's a great book. Again, it really does go to your mindset, which it's just awesome. And if you get the audiobook, he's got like this awesome Irish accent. It's great. And I second NABO. I've been a member of NABO for, gosh, I think almost 5 years now. So it definitely is a great community of like-minded women business owners. And we actually have some NABROs now too, as they call them.
All right. You are more than welcome, Steve. Thank you for asking. All right. So I think if we talk quickly, we'll have time for this one last question. I'm a solo that has a lot of high value proprietary info. I'm wondering if VAs have keyloggers so we know what files they're downloaded and how they use the time we're paying for. Laura?
So I'm not sure what you mean by keyloggers. If you could expand on that. The way that our services work is that we use time tracking software. So they have to track their time, and then they have to, when they're clocking in and out, they need to put a description of what they did during that period. So I know a lot of people that, we were, half of our client base is attorneys. So we have a lot of confidential information that our VAs are handling. Actually every attorney has the virtual assistant sign an NDA, which is just like a little extra layer of protection, because also in our agreement, we have a confidentiality clause. There's lots of precautions that you can take. And if that's something that you're really, really concerned about, I would definitely not just hire any virtual assistant. I would make sure that they're highly vetted, that they even come from a referral source. So if you have somebody else that you're friends with in business and, they're using a VA that they've used for years, have had great success, go the referral route then. Because I know a lot of times it is hard. That is like a hard piece, that trust factor. And a lot of times that can really make or break the relationship as well. So, and when it comes to building trust, just start out with small things and slowly build that trust. And that usually is really helpful.
And there are some VAs and some VA agencies that do use that keylogger where they'll take a snapshot of what's on the computer screen, things like that. You just have to ask when you're researching whether or not that's something that they do. All right, over to you, Claire. It's bad branding if we end late.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies. That was great. And it's the sort of thing people don't actually think about, right? It's not something when you're running your business and you're involved in the day-to-day. And you said something in the middle, which is something I always say, work on your business, not in your business. And you don't think about that when you're in it. And you really don't. And you're not going to be able to grow your business if you're not working on it. So that's one of my favorite sayings when we're talking to business owners. Anyway, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really, really helpful. And I hope everybody who was on here enjoyed it. If you have any questions, I think that we're going to send you a mail after this presentation. So if you have any questions, I think you're welcome to reach out to Lisa or Laura. We have some more webinars coming up, so just keep an eye out on our Facebook page and LinkedIn page for those. This will be on YouTube shortly, and I think that's all I have to say right now. So again, thank you very, very much, and we will see everyone on the next one. Bye.
Thanks.